Okay, so I want you to imagine something. Picture a world where math isn't just a subject you learn in school. Now here, it's the literal fabric of reality itself, a place where solving an equation can, I don't know, unleash a wave of pure force. Well, today, we're diving deep into the world of Concord, where every single breath is math, and history itself is just this giant living equation that's still being calculated.
So where does it all start? It all begins with these things called fractals. These are the fundamental building blocks of the entire universe, kind of like the pre-symbolic echoes of math. Think of them like numbers that are just waiting to happen, these raw ingredients just shimmering all around us, waiting for someone or something to give them shape.
And what happens when those raw fractals are woven together? Well, whether it's done by nature or by a skilled caster, they become what are known as glyphs. A glyph is basically a living, breathing equation. It's the language of Concord, and it's how you turn that raw, chaotic energy into structured, tangible power. It's like a spell and a sentence all rolled into one.
So here's what we're going to cover today. We'll kick things off with the core idea that magic is math. Then we'll look at the big players in this world, the traditional houses of Concord, the, let's say, different half-born of the Expanse, and the super-rigid order-bound. And we'll see how it all leads to a massive clash of realities.
All right, first up, let's really dig into the central idea that powers this entire world. Because in Concord, the simple act of thinking, of calculating, is literally an act of creation.
This is so cool. The mental effort it takes to solve a problem, it generates a real physical resonance. You can then shape that energy into, say, a fiery attack, a protective shield, or just a straight-up kinetic blast. So your level of understanding directly translates into your ability to shape the world around you. Seriously, in Concord, thinking is energy.
Okay, so with that foundation in place, let's talk about the established order in this world, the four great houses. This is a society built entirely on the most stable and, you guessed it, predictable form of math.
And just look at this. This is the world of House Fireheart, a land literally forged in fire and reborn from ash. They're one of the four houses of Concord, and what's amazing is that their entire philosophy is shaped by a single mathematical concept. It gives their power this raw, really elemental feel.
You see, each of the four houses was started by an ancient tribe that revered one of the four basic operations. So you've got House Whitewing, who are all about addition, power through accumulation. Then there's House Etheria, focused on subtraction or refinement by removal. We just saw House Fireheart, masters of multiplication and exponential growth. And finally, House Mystic, who see power in division, sharing a whole into many parts. Their entire cultures are built around these simple, powerful ideas.
So you could say the four houses represent the default reality of Concord. Their magic, their society, their entire understanding of the universe. It's all built on the stability and predictability of integers, whole numbers. They're clean, they're countable, and they're reliable. This is a world where answers are absolute and things just make sense.
But of course, that's not the whole story. Outside the neat and ordered lands of Concord, another reality exists. And this one isn't defined by wholeness, but by what's missing. Now we're going to talk about the half-born, who've managed to build an entirely different kind of power from this very concept of incompleteness.
Yeah, every scar is a reminder. This is the creed of the Moss Guard, one of the half-born lineages, and it just perfectly captures their philosophy. They don't hide their wounds. To them, scars are glyphic records of survival. For the half-born, incompleteness isn't some flaw that needs to be fixed. No, it's a fundamental truth you have to embrace.
And their home? It's called the Fractured Expanse, which is described as basically a wound in reality itself. It's a chaotic place, floating shards of land, deep, foggy chasms. The land itself is never whole. Here, fractions aren't just some abstract idea. They are the literal law of the land. They shape every single aspect of life and death.
Now here's where it gets really interesting, the nature of their magic. A fraction glyph isn't just a simple number, it's an unresolved equation, and it's just pulsing with all this potential energy. And this makes their magic way more potent than the simple integers of Concord, but it's also dangerously unstable. It's the power of a question that's never, ever fully answered.
And then there's the third major power. This is a faction that looks at the living, breathing, beautiful math of Concord and sees nothing but a system. A system to be controlled, to be exploited, all through cold, hard logic.
Yeah. That which is uncalculated must be enclosed. This is their law of containment, the core philosophy of the order-bound. They believe that chaos, it's just unresolved computation. Any mystery, any infinity, heck, any emotion, it's all just an impurity in the logic of the universe, and it must be enclosed, contained, controlled.
And their method is, well, it's terrifyingly efficient. They take a mathematical curiosity, the endless energy of repeating decimals like 0.333 forever, and they turn it into an industrial engine. They capture this infinite recursion, channel it like electricity through a massive grid, and use it to power everything. Their cities, their surveillance drones, their robotic armies, all of it.
So you can see how this puts them in direct opposition to pretty much everyone else. Right? The houses of Concord, they revere the harmony of whole numbers. The half-born find this deep spiritual truth in incompleteness. But the order-bound, they look at all of that and just see a resource to be exploited. To them, infinity isn't some mystery to revere. It's a battery that you plug into the wall.
So, what we have here are three factions, each built on a fundamentally different type of number. And each one has its own completely non-negotiable truth about the very nature of reality.
And this raises a really fascinating question, doesn't it? Because this isn't just a war of armies. It's a war of ideologies. It's a war of physics. What happens when the world of stable, predictable integers collides with the world of volatile, chaotic fractions, and the world of cold, weaponized decimals?
Let's just put the two outsider factions side by side for a second. The half-born, they look at incompleteness and see the ultimate truth of survival. They find actual strength in the fracture. The order-bound, on the other hand, see that exact same fracture, that same chaos, and they see a problem that must be solved, contained, and perfected through logic. It's like they're two sides of the very same coin, but they've come to totally opposite conclusions.
And really, this table just sums it all up perfectly. You've got the four houses seeking harmony through the stability of integers and those four basic powers. Then you have the half-born who find spiritual power in the unresolved equations of fractions, because to them, incompletion is truth. And finally, the order-bound, enforcing absolute control by engineering the infinite recursion of decimals, believing that absolutely everything must be contained. Three factions, three different kinds of math, three completely different realities at war.
Which kind of leaves us with one final, pretty mind-bending thought. In a universe that is literally built from mathematics, we assume there's always one correct answer, right? But what if there isn't? What if the very nature of truth, of reality itself, actually changes depending on who's doing the calculating?